How did the Packers get here, hoisting the Lombardi Trophy, winning the Super Bowl in 2010-2011 season? How did they do it, especially with Aaron Rodgers as the quarterback and not Brett Favre? How did they get to this moment here? Well, let's go back to the 2005 offseason. The Packers were coming off a 10-6 season and lost in the first round of the playoffs. Packers, they needed change everywhere, and Bob Harlan, who was the Packers president at the time, knew that. So he hires Ted Thompson as the new GM. He worked with the Packers during Favre homegrown era and also worked with homegrown in Seattle, Ted Thompson did. Now, the Super Bowl starting roster already had some established guys such as Donald Driver, Nick Barnett, Chad Clifton, Scott Wells, Mark Tauscher, Colin Jenkins. And in that 2005 offseason, Thompson moved on from 3 stars to begin the rebuild and did one of the biggest moves you would ever see in football, and is still one of the biggest moves in NFL history to this day. In his first draft, he drafted Brett Favre's eventual replacement, Aaron Rodgers. Should have never happened. We all know what happened in the Rodgers draft. We all know how he fell down when he was supposed to go number 1. He was supposed to be the number 1 guy, and it goes Alex Smith to the 49ers. Then Rodgers drops all the way to the Packers. And the Packers didn't even trade up. He falls all the way down to them. So one of the craziest moves in that. But in that same draft, he drafted Nick Collins, the safety, in the second round. He got tight end Donald Lee in free agency. And the Packers go 4-12 that year due to season-ending injuries. They had so many season-ending injuries, and Brett Favre was the guy. Now we head to the 2006 offseason. Ted Thompson fires Mike Sherman, the head coach at the time there, who had been there for the past couple years after Holmgren left to go to Seattle. They bring in a new guy, an offense coordinator from the 49ers, which the Packers had success with Mike Holmgren there. Now they get a guy named Mike McCarthy. Mike McCarthy, who was the OC in San Francisco and New Orleans he was part of, which surprisingly at the time of the hire, when he was the coordinator for both the Saints and the 49ers, the offense was ranked bad. It was just bad, but it had successful individual players, and he was a former QB coach for the Packers in 99. It was a questionable move at the time. I will say that. It was definitely a questionable move at the time around the league because nobody knew what to make of it because they was just like a head scratcher, and there were definitely other better candidates at the time. But as we get into the free agency of that offseason, the Packers had the most cap space in the league at the time, and Thompson went big. He hit the nail in the coffin by re-signing some players and made some splash signings such as Hall of Famer Charles Woodson from the Oakland Raiders at the time, who didn't want to come to Green Bay. That's the interesting thing about it. Charles Woodson never wanted to go to Green Bay, and the Packers convinced him. And Charles wanted to be off that roster. He did not want to stay on the team. He just wanted to leave. And Packers, they rejuvenated his career. They definitely rejuvenated his career. They got Ryan Pickett from the Rams. Fast forward to the draft. They drafted A.J. Hawk, Greg Jennings, Darren Kolich, and Brett Favre, who's still the quarterback at the time. They don't do terrible. They go 8-8 that year, first year of Mike McCarthy. Then we get to the 2007 season. Bob Harlan retires as the Packers president, and Mark Murphy takes over as the new Packers president. So, Brett Favre, who's still the quarterback at this point right now, we're talking here, and Rodgers still sitting on the bench. He's still waiting to get his shot. But in that 2007 offseason, in the draft especially, Packers traded for Giants running back Ryan Grant for a 6th-round pick in the 2008 draft. They drafted Justin Harrell, James Jones, Mason Crossbar Crosby, Desmond Bishop, Brandon Jackson, and the Packers went 13-3 when nobody expected them to, and came so close to going back to Super Bowl with Brett Favre until Favre threw an interception in overtime to the Giants to seal the game. That was brutal. Especially the weather in that game was ridiculous. It was one of the coldest games ever, folks. And that's where we start the drama here, folks. That's where, as soon as Favre threw the interception, we didn't know whether Brett Favre was going to retire or not. Now, it was contemplated over the past couple of years. He might consider retiring, he might not. But 2008 was when the drama started because Favre finally made up his mind to retire for so many years after contemplating it.
I am officially retiring from the NFL and Green Bay Packers. And
Rodgers, will he finally get his start? Or so we thought. Favre decided to unretire in the summer of 2008 and wanted to play with the Packers. This started the media and the fans' drama here, which went on forever. It's way worse than when the Rodgers leaving the Packers. The Favre Rodgers thing, that was way worse. That was way worse, especially if you had more media back in the day, was way worse. The Packers front office finally decided in a press conference, and Mark Murphy laid down the law by saying Rodgers was the guy and Favre got traded to the New York Jets. And in that '08 draft that year, Packers drafted Jordy Nelson, Jermichael Finley, Josh Sitton. Pretty good to get those three guys because Jordy Nelson had a great career. Finley had a short career, but great. Josh Sitton had an amazing career with the Packers. But the season didn't go well for them because Packers went 6-10 in Rodgers' first year. So right away, people are thinking Rodgers might not be the guy. This is not going to work well. Mike McCarthy, Ted Thompson, what are they doing? We should get rid of it all. We should have kept Favre. But Rodgers proved that he was one of the best quarterbacks in the league that season by passing over 4,038 yards in his first season as a starter, as well as throwing 28 passing TDs and only 13 interceptions. Not terrible for a first-year guy. That's pretty solid. So what happens in that offseason? He signs a 6-year extension. Very cheap deal he signed for 6 years. Ted Thompson was very smart because you look at today of quarterback deals, that definitely doesn't happen. That definitely doesn't happen nowadays. But very smart for Ted Thompson to believe that Rodgers is the guy. He believes it. The whole team believes that he's the guy. Now we get to the 2009 offseason here, guys. Mike McCarthy brings in a new DC because Packers defense was not going great. So they bring a new DC named Dom Capers, who had a lot of experience in his time with multiple teams and been around the league forever. Packers drafted B.J. Raji, Clay Matthews, and T.J. Lang. The Packers almost had all the pieces together, and the Packers come out of nowhere. Like I mentioned with the 2007 season where they lose the Giants and they went 13-3, no one expected that. This season, nobody expected it either, where Rodgers had a fantastic season. They go 11-5. They lose in one of the highest scoring games in NFL playoff history, which was ridiculous, which was in the wild card. The team was finally heating up, and they showed that they could play against the best. And the Cardinals, they went to the Super Bowl and they lost to the Steelers in the Super Bowl, but the Packers showed that they could play against the best. Now we get to the Super Bowl season, 2010 Super Bowl season. In the 2010 draft, the Packers select Brian Bulaga, Iowa. Then the Packers also drafted eventual stars, safety Morgan Burnett, offensive tackle Marshall Newhouse, and running back James Starks, important rotational pieces. And they also included tight end Andrew Corliss and defensive end C.J. Wilson. Then, this is more interesting here for the Packers. They also signed several free agents, including rookie undrafted free agents such as cornerback Sam Shields, linebacker Frank Zombo, punter Tim Mastay, tight end Tom Crabtree. And other free agents include safety Charlie Pepera and outside linebacker Eric Walden. But let's start off week 1. They start the season against the Eagles and beat them 27-20 in Philly for the first time since 1962. However, they had players who went down that game. They lost Justin Harrell to a torn ACL and Ryan Grant who injured his ankle. Both players were placed on the injury reserve for the rest of the season and were basically out. Week 2, they beat the Buffalo Bills in home opener 34-7. So they dominated. Especially that defense and offense altogether. Week 3, they lose to the Bears in Chicago 20-17. They lose to the Bears. Week 4, they beat the Lions 28-26 in a shootout. The next 2 weeks, they got flat tires in overtime against Washington and Miami on game-winning field goal back-to-back in a heartbreaker there, folks. So the Packers, they had to fill up the car and went full gas on the throttle like Fast and Furious of a 4-game win streak to improve to 7-3. Then they hit a bump in the road in Atlanta on a losing game-winning field goal, then rebounded to blow out the 49ers 34-16, one of Rodgers and Donald Driver's best games, folks. A couple weeks before the playoff began, Rodgers suffers a concussion in the Lions game, which they lost and put the Packer fans in jeopardy and worried. It worried the fans because they thought they lost Rodgers the whole season. They go on to lose to New England. Rodgers, he's not out for the season.
They get nothing. Not a sniff. Drop the ball down the throat. Dominate.
He comes back.
1, 2, 3.
He comes back and plays against the Giants and destroys them 45-17. At this point, the Packers are sitting at 9-6 and need a win to punch their ticket into the playoffs. In a grueling match, they barely come off a win against the Bears, 10-3 with a Nick Collins game-sealing interception to punch a ticket to the playoffs and to punch a ticket to Philly to go play in the playoffs. And now we get to the playoffs. The Packers entered as the lowest seed in the playoffs, 6th seed at the time, is what it was in the NFL. The phrase was in the locker room for the Packers, 16 quarters. 16 quarters to go win the Super Bowl.
16 quarters.
We got 16 quarters left.
16 quarters.
We get into the wild card game against Philadelphia. Packers start out hot, 21-10 in the game. Then the Eagles start to make the game interesting. They start making a comeback here till the very end of the game, because that's when it gets mostly dramatic. Until Packers CB Tramon Williams had a game-sealing interception to seal the Packers win and win the game against the Eagles to get the first playoff game for Rodgers in his career. With that win, that sent the Packers to take on the number 1 seed in the NFC, the Atlanta Falcons, who had the best offense that year.
12 quarters.
12 to go.
And now we get to the divisional round in Atlanta. First part of the game, the Packers did not play great by giving up 1 turnover and 102 kickoff return to start the game. Once that happened, the Packers, they clicked. They woke up on both sides of the ball by putting up 28 points in the second quarter, with Tramon Williams having a pick 6 to end the half, and the Falcons were never able to catch up with a dominant win from Green Bay, 48-21, to send them to the NFC Championship game for the first time since the 2000-2008 season against the Giants, when Brett Favre was the quarterback. So Rodgers' first time gets it going, and he was hot. He was hot in the playoffs, guys, and that was arguably Rodgers' best game.
Here come the Pack.
8 quarters.
8 quarters.
8 quarters to go.
Green Bay goes on to face their rival, the Chicago Bears, in the NFC Championship game. Packers jumped out to a 14-0 lead, then slowly started to give the lead away despite the Bears losing their starting QB, Jay Cutler. And Packers defensive lineman B.J. Raji comes out of nowhere and intercepts the ball to run it back for TD to basically seal the game and for the Packers to win it all, to win that game and to finally get to go to the Super Bowl for the first time since the 98 season where they got to go face the Broncos. Charles Woodson, the man of the hour, the man of the team on that defense, had a speech in that locker room after that NFC Championship game.
I had heard the comment about him going to the Super Bowl if the Bears won. I gotta say something. What do I say? Obama will go. I got it.
The president don't want to come watch us to the Super Bowl. Guess what? Guess what? Guess what? We'll go see him. Hey, let's get a White House on 3. 1, 2, 3. White House. That's right.
Finally, 4 quarters to go. The final 4.
And now we get to the Super Bowl. We get to the Super Bowl. Packers taking on the Pittsburgh Steelers in Dallas.
Follow my lead today. Who's going to be the big dog with me? Hey, no one that can stop us. Stay together today. We're going to dominate all day. Dominate on 3. 1, 2, 3. Dominate.
Packers start out hot once again with an 18-point lead at half, 21-3, including a Jordy Nelson and Greg Jennings TD, along with a Nick Collins pick 6. Fantastic to see that for the Packers. Fantastic to see that. And we get the Black Eyed Peas for the halftime show. They were all right. Then the second half begins. The Pittsburgh Steelers came back with a roar to be down by 3 after Rodgers was going in and out throughout the entire second half and he could not score a touchdown. He just couldn't score anything, guys. He just really couldn't.
Everybody looks up to Wood as being a leader. He's gone. Nobody's standing up and rallying the troops. It is time. It is time.
Incredible play in the Super Bowl.
And off to Mendenhall. Matthews triggered it loose. Matthews with the biggest play of the game today. Third turnover, Pittsburgh.
And late in the game, on a third long down play, Rodgers throws to Grant Jennings over the middle of the field to set them up big, and to get a field goal on that drive. They were very close to getting the touchdown to seal the game mostly, but they couldn't. So they had to settle for 3. And the Steelers were right there. They were right there. All they needed to do was to score a touchdown. They win the game. They win the game, folks. And the Steelers did it before. They've done it before against the Cardinals. They've done it so many times. They've been to this mode so many times before with Big Ben as the quarterback, Ben Roethlisberger. But Packers defense said, nah. They made a stop on the final drive with Tramon Williams breaking up that pass. And there is your Super Bowl champions defeating the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Packers win the Super Bowl for the first time since the 96-97 season. Brett Favre did not win it. Rodgers won it. He was the Super Bowl MVP. He hoists that Lombardi trophy. He hoisted it for Tyler Town to win it again for the Packers. And that's how we get to this moment here.
It's everything.
To win the Super Bowl MVP was not a goal. It was not something I thought about really until I got on the podium and someone said, hey, you're going to be the MVP.